Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here. Today we're talking about Ghost of Yotei Legends because the free multiplayer expansion for Ghost of Yotei has just dropped. This is $0. If you have Ghost of Yotei on your PlayStation 5, you can play this right now. It's got tons of bosses and grinding gear and incredibly cool upgrades and multiple classes, but I want to break down the goods and the bads because I gotta say that I really like the Legends stuff they've been doing. In the original game, in Ghost of Tsushima, they also launched a big Legends mode. But that Legends mode in the first game, it always felt a little bit tacked on for at least the first year. It really took them a long time to kind of figure out what Legends was supposed to be. Whereas with this one, in the sequel of Yotei, Sucker Punch and the developers have straight up said this was now always the point. This was actually in development for the entirety of the game. And while the main story of Ghost of Yotei is very dark and gritty and serious, you know, the typical revenge story of a wandering samurai mastering the blade, being a ronin, I like the fact that the Legends DLC they had for the first game and the second game, this is where stuff becomes much more fantasy. You know, much more crazy. You're fighting off demons. You're teaming up with people that have magical powers. You're popping off like all sorts of crazy abilities. This, though, honestly, Yotei Legends plays so incredibly well. You can technically play this by yourself, although I don't know why you would, but let's break down how this works, how fun it is, and why I feel like this is only going to get better because they've already announced a whole slate of stuff that's about to drop here in the next couple weeks. Let's begin. I hope you're having a great day. If you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's be clear one thing. If you didn't like the base game of Ghost of Yotei, you're probably not going to like this because it does still play like 99% the same. It's basically, you know, that same style of like swordsmanship, parries, dodge rolls, and trying to use your spirit to heal yourself. But this is sort of doing things in a different direction now that it is fully multiplayer. I did decide to test out some of the missions by myself. Honestly, they're 10 times more fun when you play it with others, even randoms. There is voice chat. For some reason, very few people use it. I've heard a couple of people like coughing and chewing Doritos, so I know the mics work, but nobody really seems to be that social in this. But this isn't really the game that requires that much communication. So there are 2-player missions and 4-player missions. Essentially, the story of this piece of DLC is that there is this weird mythological council of big bad beasties, right? These people, the spider, the oni, the kitsune, the snake, these sort of demonic figures that have taken over the land, and each of them has their own bad business going on. Somebody's trying to grow like a forest of blood trees that eat people. They're cannibalistic trees. There's people laying down giant explosive barrels. There's all sorts of stuff, but basically the way this works is that it's sort of just an excuse to fight waves and waves and waves of zombie samurai. Now, let's talk about this. So the way this works is that let's talk about the 4-player mode first, because I think that's going to be more of what people are going to be playing. So in this course, there are separate classes. There's these 4 separate classes at launch. They've already teased that they're going to add more down the line, but they're essentially a samurai, a archer, a mercenary, and a shinobi. And basically the way this works is that each of them have different primary and secondary weapons. The archer has a spear, the samurai has an Odachi, which is like a big heavy blade, the mercenary has the dual katanas, and the shinobi has the Kusarigama, which is like the little curved knife thing that's super good for like, honestly, just ripping people's weapons out of their hands. Everybody can use every weapon. A lot of times when you're killing people, they are dropping weapons on the ground. You can just pick them up and kill anybody with anything. But I wanted to just be the classic samurai. I'll admit it. I like the samurai a lot. I just like using my little sword to parry, block, and use my special attacks. But each of the classes has different powers. Like for the samurai, as he's sort of like out there having these fights, I had this ability to soak up health from everybody around me. And honestly, it soaked up more than I expected, so I really found myself kind of throwing myself into the fray and really trying to soak up all I could because it was also doing area of effect. It was literally hitting everybody around me for a pretty decent amount of damage. There is all sorts of stuff like in the survival mode, there's a wave-based mode where you have to survive, I think it's 12 separate waves, and boy, do they get harder and harder and harder. And as you're doing them, there's also stuff like traps on the map. You can actually take over ballistas and hit some of the super hard bosses that show show up. But while you're doing this, as you're killing these in the survival mode, you unlock special boons and buffs. You basically can get blessings by spending the souls of the demons you killed to get different bonuses of your choosing. You know, refilling all your health, making your ammo explode more often, or even just summoning bombs onto the map. I like the fact that the wave-based multiplayer is clearly what people are going to play the most. There's tons of difficulty, so this can become harder and harder and harder. There is like this gear score system. As you're doing these missions, both the single-player stuff or the stuff that's more like story-focused versus big boss-focused, you get loot. The loot all has like different numbers on it called the Kai, or the key, right? Now, as you're equipping this, you're going to get a better gear score rating. You're going to be able to survive more. You're going to be able to hit harder. And a lot of times it has passive and active bonuses, right? All sorts of stuff where now you can hit harder, stagger quicker, block more, or even some of the stuff lets you like deflect bullets. But what was really cool to me is that when I started doing the story mode itself, so there is the other style of stuff we're getting down the line is like big raids. These big raids are going to require 4 players as well. They're going to unlock that later. But the way this works right now is that the story missions are 2-player only. There's like, 12 of the 2-player missions right now. And these are basically you and a target trying to take something down. Each of the missions in this entire game are about 10 to 12 minutes long. And I like this because it really makes it where you and the other person drop in, you start trying to assassinate targets, you assess what you're trying to do, you accomplish the mission, and then you evac. I do like the fact that there is nothing in this that feels like a waste of time. Nothing feels super like drawn out. You're not spending time running to the objective. You drop into a village that's been taken over, you rescue people, and you dip. I like the fact that there's this very quick pace to everything where it's constantly just get in there, kill people, get some loot, get some unlockables, upgrade your gear, buy a new passive bonus, and just kill, kill, kill. Now, for each of the 4 main bosses that currently exist, they have like these 3 prerequisite, like two-player missions. Prerequisite. There's 3 prerequisite missions for each of the 4 bosses. And once you've done those, you can repeat any mission in this game as much as you want, but once you do those 3, then you unlock the actual boss. This is a 4-player mission that is super big, super crazy, and it's for each of the 4. And I like the fact that there is something about like breaking into a base and you're scaling the wall with all your other fellow badass samurai and you're using your grapple hooks and trying to sneak in or just time to time. All right, now you use your cooldown. Now I'll use my cooldown. It feels like it's very much balanced around that cool chaos of just bulk murder machines. Now, if you play this solo, there is like a revive system. If you get down, somebody can come up and just hold the right trigger for, it's like literally 2 seconds. You revive super fast, thankfully. But if everybody dies, it consumes 1 life charge. And when you do that, the whole party gets rezzed. Now, 4 or 5 life charges doesn't sound like it would be a lot. It is actually a lot. I will say that this, when you're playing by yourself, it doesn't feel too overwhelmingly difficult, but it seems like they've tuned it so that when you're playing by yourself, stuff dies faster and it's less aggressive. So it is possible to do this stuff by yourself, but even if those reses go further, it feels like it takes way, way longer to actually do these missions by yourself. And honestly, it's just less fun. There is something cool about going in there with somebody who has different cosmetics, a different build, a different class, and watching them chop stuff up with abilities you haven't seen yet. I really like the grind of this already, where it is cool that I want to keep doing these missions, upgrading my gear, and getting a chance to try the harder and harder difficulties. Because this isn't one of those like easy, medium, and hard. It's basically normal, hardcore, and then brutal. And each of them requires a much higher gear score level. I think this is the kind of game that it's wild to me that this is free, but as you're killing these bosses, as you're leveling up, I'm already excited for what that raid is going to look like. I think that 4-player balance is incredibly good. I think I'm not really the biggest fan right now of the survival mode. I don't know, something about the survival mode just being like, here you are standing in a big empty field and fight stuff for 30 minutes. That to me just isn't as fun as like the cool dynamics of like multi-layered sneaking and trying to worry about resource management. I hope we get some survival stages that aren't quite so horizontal. These have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. How do you feel about Ghost of Yotei Legends? Have you had a chance to play it? Do you own Ghost of Yotei? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And please, if you could, give this video a like and keep dreaming.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.